Hello, George.
Morning, Mask. How are you?
Very well. I'll turn my camera off, but I just wanted you to see my face, that's all.
Beautiful face to see.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning, and thanks to Chair of Selectors, George Bailey, for coming along as well. Obviously, Australia named their 15-player squad plus 3 travelling reserves for the upcoming ICC T20 Men's World Cup in the UAE and Oman. As always, guys, if you could keep your cameras off and please stay muted until such time as I come to you with the question. If you have a question, let me know in the chat box. We'll try to get to everyone. There's quite a few people in the conference today, so we'll work through those one by one. A little bit of housekeeping here from Adelaide quarantine. Overnight, we had some exemptions granted to our squad to resume training from this afternoon. So that will bode well for the next few days here in quarantine. So we'll get underway in a second. If you have a question, as I say, let me know in the chat box. We'll start here with Will from 9 News. Will? You there, Will? We'll jump Will and we'll go to Melinda Farrell.
Thanks, Cole. Thanks, George. Just first of all, probably just about the inclusion of Josh Inglis. Obviously, he didn't come back as McDermott and Philippi did to join that squad. Can you just talk us through why he's ended up making the selection and what you think his preparation is going to be like going into that World Cup?
Yeah, Josh has been on the radar for a while. His performance, and not just in T20 but across all formats, has been really impressive over the last 12 months. So there was a lot of challenges around that. The decisions around bringing guys back from playing in the UK, and we'd spoken to Josh about playing in the Blast and hopefully the 100, and continuing to push his case that way, and he really did. He being the leading run scorer over there was fantastic. So in terms of our squad, we think he brings some great flexibility. He's batted at the top, but in terms of guys who have batted at the top and shifted into the middle, I thought his transformation into a middle order player last year for the Scorchers was seamless. Really good player of spin. Provides a few different finishing abilities in terms of being able to play all around the ground, but also really powerful as well. So he's a really great all-round player. And I fully appreciate the bolter look about it, but certainly someone we've had our eye on for some time.
Thanks, George.
Alex Johnston.
G'day, George. A bit of a two-pronged question from me. If you can talk about Nathan Ellis a little bit and why you chose to take him as a reserve rather than straight into the squad. And my second question is for you. Not long after you've hung up the spikes, you're now having to select guys that you've played a lot of cricket with. Is that difficult, given that the guys that you did directly play with, no doubt just through nature of playing with them, you would have seen their potential so much more than guys that you haven't played in the squad with? And how do you put that aside and make an objective decision?
Thanks, mate. A great story, Nathan Ellis, on perseverance and commitment to the cause. He's where he is on that travelling reserves list because the bowlers in front of him have we see ahead of him, and I think rightly so, given the 4 quicks that are there and their performance for Australia over a long period of time. So. Again, in terms of what you're after from those reserves, and knowing that we can't carry that many of them, you want someone who can cover as many bases as you can, particularly T20. The distinct roles of bowling with the newer ball through the middle or finishing off at the death, and we feel like Nathan covers those bases really, really well. gives his absolute all. Terrific team man to have with the group as well. So, and someone we obviously see as having a really strong future in the Australian coloured clothing. So great to have him there. And the second bit, it is what it is. I mean, I think the fact I have strong relationships with players is a strength that I can call on at different times. Hopefully there's a level of care and certainly in this role, and I'm not unique in this, you're constantly seeking out other opinions, and there's a lot of people who are probably much better thinkers on the game and better judges of cricketers than me, so constantly seeking out their opinions, and you get to have lots of great conversations with some of those players, as well as obviously the inevitable challenging ones at times.
We'll go back to Will from 9 News.
G'day, George. Can you hear me there, mate?
Yeah, mate.
Oh, sorry about that before. Just, mate, I'd just love to get your thoughts and a bit of clarity around Alex Carey's position at the moment, not making the team. I suppose, where does he sit in the hierarchy? And can you just detail the decision not to include him in this one?
Yeah, really clear with Alex. It's just based on performances, and want to be really distinct in separating one-day cricket and T20 here, because the feedback for Alex even on this most recent tour is his one-day cricket has been fantastic, and I was highly impressed with not only the way he played in the most recent one-day games, but also the way he led the team in pretty challenging circumstances. So he's still someone we have a huge amount of respect for the way he goes about it, and see him playing a lot more games of cricket for Australia and having a really big role in the way the team, the culture of the team and the leadership of the team going forward as well. So purely performance-based around T20, and a little bit probably around that flexibility piece too, around ability to bat in different parts of the order depending on what's required.
Excellent. Thank you, mate.
Louis Cameron.
Hey George, just picking up on what you said there. Where do you see the keeper batting at the T20 World Cup, mate? And do you still kind of see Matt Wade as the number one choice there?
Yeah, we do, but I think it's not really up to me the batting order. We'll obviously talk to that a little bit as we get closer, but I try and leave that to the captain as much as I can. The one thing when I look through that squad that I like is that to me it looks like a squad that is adaptable and flexible. There is a number of guys that have batted at the top, the number of guys that have also rolled through the middle, and if we need to change that at different times, I think we've got the flexibility to do so.
And just looking forward a little bit further to the end of the World Cup and the Afghan test that might overlap with the quarantine period on the way back, given the stuff that's happened around the training exemptions for the current team returning, are you kind of confident you'll be able to select guys who went to the World Cup in that Afghanistan test? Yeah,
that's certainly one permutation of how it might play out. There seems to be lots of moving parts with that at the moment. So, we're preparing that all things being equal, we'll have a full strength test squad to select from if it happens that we get as deep into this T20 tournament that we'd like to, and that looks challenging around quarantines and the exemptions that will be required around that. Then we'll deal with that at the time. And if that's the case, then there'll be great opportunities for some others.
Thanks, George. Cheers.
Scott Bailey.
Yeah, g'day, George. Just one on Steve Smith. How confident are you that you will see him playing in this T20 World Cup, given his situation with his elbow?
Yeah, really confident. We've been in lots of contact with Steve, and that's it's improving. He's been really consistent with his approach to it, and I think managing it really well. And he's building up nicely. I think the latest update I had from him was that he's facing up over 100 balls in a session pretty comfortably. That's about a quarter of what he'd like to be facing for a test match. So he's got a little bit of building up to go there, but certainly as far as his build up, not only again for the World Cup, because you want Steve Smith playing as much cricket as you can for Australia, but building up nicely for the summer and all the cricket ahead.
And just one other one on the IPL guys returning. Would it be fair to say that some of the guys who went on the Bangladesh and West Indies tours maybe missed a chance to hold spots because of the way the Australian team performed and have opened the door back up for some of those more fringe IPL players, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, and not only to this tour specifically, but I would like to be in a situation where whenever we are picking a squad, that it's going to be really challenging around some of the guys that you have to leave out, and some of the guys that you've got to make a call on taking. So yeah, results wise, some challenging results in the last couple of series, but also I thought there was some great positives out of that. It certainly wasn't the sort of tour where you come back with an average of 70 and striking at 180. There was some really challenging conditions, and I think that in the long term, regardless of necessarily some of those players making the World Cup, the ability to expose them to those conditions and expose them to international cricket when perhaps they may not have had that opportunity previously is overwhelmingly positive.
Thanks, Scott. We'll go to 7 News Sydney. I'm not sure who that is, but 7.
Andrew McKinlay. Thanks, Cole. George, Justin Langer. I know Cricket Australia put out a statement yesterday, and I know you weren't privy to things that went on in both Bangladesh and the Caribbean, but is he the man, do you believe, to coach Australia through a T20 World Cup and a home Ashes defence?
Make no mistake. I think regardless of everything that might have been said and written, the amount of respect that JL has for both what he's done and what he's continuing to try and do with cricket in general, but with this team is huge. There's no doubt. I think there's been a few challenges over the last 12 months, but I think let's be realistic. There's been some challenges that have been encompassing that around some of the travel things and the tours and some of the results as well. So I don't think this is unique to JL. I think this is most industries. I think it's certainly high performance sporting organisations, but not just Justin, Aaron, Tim, all the leaders, all the senior players, all the staff are constantly trying to improve and get better. Whether that's on the back of winning series or losing series, there's a culture of constant improvement, and I don't think we're in any different stage to that right now.
So he hasn't lost the dressing room?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Apologies, guys. My COVID swab's here, but we'll keep going. Adrian Chiuli, I think. Adrian?
Well done, Cole. George, how are you, mate? Just on the Afghanistan test, obviously that's the start of a hugely important summer. Do you concede it's a bit unrealistic? It may go ahead just with the situation over there in the moment. Obviously, for a lot of the players, there's concerns with family, and even if what happens with Afghanistan as a country is, do you concede that it's looking not very good for the match at the moment?
You're probably pushing me above my pay grade there, mate. I imagine they've got some huge challenges ahead of them, and cricket. I don't know where cricket sits on the scale of that. Probably not very high, I reckon, in the scheme of things. So certainly from our point of view, I think they're a really exciting emerging cricketing country. I hope we get to play, not only that test, but a hell of a lot of cricket against them in the future. I've got no idea if that's going to go ahead, but it's not unlike a lot of things at the moment. You are planning for plans A, B, C, and D, almost constantly.
And would you like to, in the event it doesn't, would you like to have another match there? Because obviously, the Ashes is so important, but going in without a test that was there, what would you like to fill? Would you like to fill it with another match, or what would be the ideas there, you think?
Yeah, again, I think it depends a little bit how deep we get into this World Cup tournament. Ability for players to get home in between that. what it's going to look like through the Ashes as far as bubbles and whatnot go. From a player preparation perspective, it's not the first time, I think modern cricketers, and I've spoken in particular to our regular test bowling group about this. It's not the first time that they are planning to perhaps go into a test series without any red ball matches under their belt. So it's a challenge, but something that they're aware of. They're pretty highly experienced and skilled guys. So I think they can do it. We're in a world at the moment where you're not dealing with ideal particularly often. So if that's the case, then the players will make do. It certainly won't be an excuse for performance.
Thanks, mate.
Russell Gould.
Thanks, Cole. G'day, George. Just a bit of a two-parter. Are you comfortable putting the World Cup preparation for guys like Dave Warner, Pat Cummins, who haven't played since April, in the hands of their IPL teams? And secondly, the guys who aren't going to the IPL, given there's no more scheduled T20 warm-ups, are you confident those guys will get enough cricket under their belt to be ready to go for a World Cup? Looking at someone like Finchy, for example, who obviously is coming off a knee operation, I'm not sure if you've got any plans for those guys who will be here and maybe not at the IPL in terms of what they can do to get practice.
Yeah, I guess there's a few answers to that. Absolutely, I have full trust that the IPL is a good prep. Throw a bit of faith in the franchise that they'll pick the players. Certainly our players, that'd be great, so that they are getting those games and bat and bowl them in the exact roles that we'd like them to for the Australian team would be also great. But not sure we'll get any say in that. So no, really comfortable with that. I think that again, conditions will be so similar, so there's got to be some huge benefits to that. We don't know what the domestic schedule is going to look like. Again, we have to be a little bit flexible around that and what cricket guys will play. I think when you look through that squad, it's an experienced T20 list. So I don't think in terms of not having played T20 cricket for a little period of time will affect them. And like any ICC event, there'll be a couple of warm-up games. And one of the advantages of taking a slightly bigger squad is you can manufacture some scenarios and some sort of centre wicket game-like situations as well. And I guess on Finchy, I mean, all reports from that I've heard so far is that he's tracking really well and confident that there's no time pressure there for him to be up and running and get a couple of those practice games under his belt before the first game.
Andrew Menzel.
G'day, George. Just wondering who you've sort of earmarked for that sort of finishing lower order role. Obviously, a lot of top order players. So I guess apart from Maxwell, who are you sort of looking at for those roles?
Yeah, I'll be thrilled if Max is there at the end. He's been batting in around that number 4 role for us. So it's funny, people talk about the finishing role, and my ideal finishers in a T20 would be David Warner and Aaron Finch. I'd like us to get through 20 overs and have them finish the innings. But it doesn't quite always play out like that. I think Marcus Stoinis has done a really good job for us in that role, in a role that effectively at times he's been learning on the job, but also starting to do the role really, really effectively for Delhi, and they're backing him in that position as well. And then I think we've got some flexibility around. That's one of the reasons I'm really confident in what the squad can produce. I think Steve Smith's someone who has obviously batted at 3 for us. He has also batted a little bit through the middle for his IPL teams at different stages. Mitch Marsh, I think, has done a lot of finishing, but again, has really put his name up at the top of the order on the back of his last series. So that looked great. I think Matthew Wade can finish the innings really well. And it's nice to have that option of a left-hander throwing through there. So there's flexibility. Again, comfortable if Josh Inglis ends up in that role as well. So, and I think one of the other things about your finishing role is not to discount, and particularly if these wickets do end up being a little bit tired, is not to discount those lower order hitters. And I think if you watch the record of Paddy Cummins over the last little period and some of the batting that he's been putting together in the IPL, really confident that between someone like Ash Agar, Mitchell Stark, we've all got guys who can finish the job for us there as well.
Thank you.
Andrew Wu.
Yeah, good day, George. Just a follow-up question on the situation with JL and the players. How would you sort of describe the I guess that the setup at the moment, the relationship between Justin, players, and the coaching staff? I mean, do you think that's kind of do you think it's a healthy relationship and sort of conducive to, I suppose, success at the highest level?
Yeah, like I said before, mate, I think, yeah, I think we're constantly, and let's not put this all on Justin. As a group, I think if you look over the last 12 months, I don't think the Australian cricket team, if it's talk specifically about the T20 team or the all formats, I don't think we've quite played the best cricket, or certainly as good as I think we potentially could have. So I think, you know, we're constantly looking to get better on that front. I look back, you know, JL took over at a pretty challenging period of time, and since then there's been a lot of permutations and change happen in the way that group is, and there's no doubt that's one of the reasons that you periodically do full reviews of your setup and have a look at ways that you can, you know, or specific areas that you can really target to get better. But there's some new additions to that coaching staff that I think will be fantastic with the Australian cricket team. Not only some great cricketing brains, but good leaders and coaches of men and people. So yeah, I don't know where, I don't know how often that we will need to keep sort of harping on that. The focus for us is purely on the World Cup and the Ashes, in terms of if we perform well in those tournaments, you know, these things tend to die away a little bit.
Thanks, George.
We'll go to Raj, and then we'll finish off with Brett Graham. Raj.
Thanks, Cole. Hi, George. Just a quick question on who you think is the favourite going into this World Cup. Obviously, you've chosen a very strong Australian team, but who do you think is a favourite? Can you look beyond Australia, India, and England? And also, why do you think Australia has not done that well in T20 World Cups, given the fact that, you know, you've got a lot of Australian players playing the format in both in IPL and in Big Bash?
Yeah, I think every country's got a lot of players playing the format. I'm not sure we're on our own there. It's the reason they're very, very hard to win. And for that reason, I think you'd be mad to pick a favourite. It's the nature of sport. I think anytime you shorten a format, you're bringing in a capacity for anything to happen on a much greater scale. So you go through those. Any team that'll be playing that T20 World Cup, and I imagine that most would back themselves that if they're playing good enough cricket, they'll be able to hold the trophy up at the end of it. I always look at tournaments and knockout tournaments as, you know, being in distinctly two parts. You got to play really consistent and sometimes, you know, not necessarily pretty cricket to get through to the knockout stage, and then hope like hell that that's when you're playing your best cricket.
Thanks, Raj. We'll finish off with Brett Graham. Brett.
Thanks, Cole. Hi, George. Just back on Steve Smith quickly. If he's not quite 100%, say he's 90% heading into the World Cup, would you be willing to risk him at the World Cup, or would you be more likely to take a conservative approach with an eye to the summer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what the percentage would be where there'd obviously be a number where the risk would outweigh the benefits, but you know, I think we've got to place a little bit of trust in Steve as someone who knows his body and knows exactly what he needs to be able to get out of himself to perform at the level that's required, both, you know, to play for Australia, but also for the standards that he sets himself, which are obviously fairly lofty. So you know, I don't know what the percentage number is, but trust that Smudge will make the right call on it.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, Brett, and thanks, George. We'll wrap it up there, guys. Thanks, everyone, for coming along today, and thanks to Chair of Selectors, George Bailey. We'll talk to all you guys soon. Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, George.